Thanks, Rodney. So now it's my honor and privilege to introduce the moderator for today's session, Dr. Donavon Johnson, affectionately known as DJ. He's looking at me in the back because I told him I was going to tell a few embarrassing stories. And when I said that, he looked me dead in the eye and says, "Don't worry, I got some too." And so I think I'm going to tread lightly, DJ, and I'm just going to point out that DJ is an incredibly accomplished academic. He's an assistant professor in the Department of Public Administration and Policy at FIU. I have the privilege of working with him in the Institute for Public Policy, where he helps lead the research agenda for our institute. He's an incredibly published author, numerous publications, more than me, and far more read than mine, and he's just all around brilliant. So with that, DJ, remember I was very kind at your introduction, so as we move on in our career together, please remember this. And so, DJ, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Brian, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm not sure I'll be so kind. I'm just kidding. Like Brian said, I work with Brian at the Gordon Institute. In fact, he likes to think of himself as my boss sometimes. And I let him think that as well. He's an amazing person. Some of the things we discuss and talk about on our journey, even at the Gordon Institute, in terms of our research and our practice and execution, is that cybersecurity has become such a complex issue. More governments are moving online, more people are moving online, and as a result, digital footprints have increased. And so we have to contend with the issue of how do we ensure that people exist in a digitally resilient space? Who should protect us? And that's where we look to the cybersecurity workforce at the vanguard of everything, lives and livelihoods. But we have experienced a key challenge, and that is that building, retaining, attracting, and sustaining that workforce has become even more complex because of the intersectionalities and the nuances that exist. And I think Gretchen is the one who said it best, that Colorado exists as a microcosm, a space where we can bring together key sectors and different personnel to have a discussion around this issue. Brian said I'm smart, but I'm happy to be joined by a much smarter panel of individuals to help us talk through some of these issues. And so I'd like to invite to join me on the platform Penny Smith, and you could give her a round of applause as she comes from the city of Colorado Springs. Justin Goodwin, and Justin Goodwin is the Chief Information Technology Officer here. Laura Staats from U.S. Space Command. Sean Murray. Sean. And Benjamin Edelen. Ben? Perfect. And I'm going to give the panelists an opportunity to tell us a little bit more about what they do and introduce themselves briefly. Starting with you, Penny.
Sure. I'll go first. I'm Penny Smith. I'm the Assistant Director of IT for the City of Colorado Springs. I'm relatively new, so I started the position in January, but I've been working with the city for some time. I have responsibility for all of our applications and operations. It spans a portfolio of over 400 applications that both serve the public of the City of Colorado Springs, but also our departments. We've got 17 departments. My peer in the organization is the CISO. He has responsibility for all of cyber and data and innovation. But one of the reasons he asked me to attend is that we've shifted out of just the cyber team doing cyber activities, and it's also my folks in applications administration and systems ops work who are doing a lot of the actual cyber activities.
I feel like such a big boy, my big boy chair. I'm Justin Goodwin. I'm the Chief Information Technology Officer for Pikes Library District. We have 14 branches around the county, El Paso County. We go as far north as Palmer Lake, as far south as Fountain, as far east as Callahan, and as far west as Ute Pass, our little library up on the mountain just underneath the base of Pikes Peak. So happy to be here with these cybersecurity juggernauts. I am not a cybersecurity juggernaut, but I'm here to represent, we are a publicly funded public entity and nonprofit organization, so I'm here to offer my perspective on that. So thank you.
Okay. Is this? Hello? Oh, there it is. Okay. I'm Luria Staats. I'm an IT action officer for U.S. Space Command. I have a jack of all trades background, from taking apart computers and putting them back together as a help desk technician all the way into IT project management, architecture for networks and cybersecurity. And as the name suggests, for Space Command, I take IT, I action it, and that makes me an officer, so I'm kind of important. No, really. No, but I do basically, bigwigs say, I want this, and I go, yes, sir. Cool. That's my background.
Hello. My name is Ben Edelen, and I am the Chief Information Security Officer of Boulder County, your friendly county up north. I have run and created cybersecurity programs for a number of different governments, a city, a county, sort of even a state agency at one point. I'm also the chair of Colorado's Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management Cybersecurity Subcommittee, which informs our state leaders about the cybersecurity activities that are happening across our state in the area of government.
Hi everyone, many of you know me. I've been part of the ecosystem here for about 20 years. We own a company called Murray Security Services. We celebrated 20 years last November. We have two lines of business in our institution. One focuses on the academic side, so training, certifications, a lot of things that we've talked about here. And the other side is consulting. So I've spent a good portion of my career in military defense, intelligence, State Department, other federal agencies as well. And I'm a practitioner who also enjoys teaching. I've served on many various boards in my local area, Workforce Center Board, World Affairs Council, amongst others. SBDC, the Small Business Development Center, which is falls underneath the Chamber and EDC. I advise at the local level, at the state level, with our legislators. We help them in making decisions that affect all citizens across the United States as well. The immediate past president for the largest information systems, now called cybersecurity systems. So the ISSA chapter, the International Board of Directors, is their last president. So I get to advise world leaders on cyber issues and governance issues and policy issues.
Thanks, everyone. We're having our conversation this afternoon under the theme, Securing Our Communities, Harnessing Colorado's Dynamic Sectors to build a resilient cybersecurity workforce ecosystem. Now, I'd like us to start the conversation in kind of understanding the context that we're working with, the context that we're living in. And I'd like to start with you, Penny. Coming to this issue from a municipal government perspective, you're at the front line, I'd say, of this issue. And from your perspective, what cybersecurity workforce gaps do you think exist? The ones that you struggle with most at a municipal government level? And how is that impacting the quality of public service delivery?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, DJ. I think it's probably not a secret, or it's probably generally understood that being a municipal government, we have limited funds. So our primary budget source is through sales tax revenue. And where there are challenges from the economy, then that kind of filters down into our budget. So I would say, the number one issue is just not being able to hire the number of resources that we would like. The other challenge we have, which is maybe a little more obscure, is around we're very fortunate in the sense that we have very low attrition, and so and where I do have attrition, I may not be able to shift resources and hire cyber resources like I would want to, but I've got other backfill legacy needs that I've got to support. And so really balancing that across the entire organization is one of our biggest challenges.
Thank you so much. I mean, I think one of the things we hear most from municipal governments is that there is always attrition because the guy at the end there, he's from the private sector and they always steal the talent. So I think it's a good thing to hear that you do not really have the attrition issue. And so I'd like to jump over to Sean at the end there. Sean, in terms of coming to this issue from the private sector perspective, what are the most pressing cybersecurity workforce challenges do you face in the private sector? And I also want you to think about scope and size, if that matters in the whole conversation around.
So what I'll do is I'll represent my clientele on the consulting side that we try and solve these issues for, because oftentimes if you're calling me, you're suffering, you're struggling with those challenges. In our breakout earlier today, we had somebody from a municipality who just, to emulate your point, you train them, you have them for 3 years, and then they move on because, economically here, the struggles are, the three major issues with this local ecosystem here, affordable housing, affordable transportation, and affordable childcare. And if you're at an entry level or municipal position, you're not making a lot of money to sustain yourself in those three areas. So you either move away or you pivot and do the job somewhere else that's paying you more money. Some of the struggles we've seen during the pandemic, post-pandemic for our clients in these areas, we'll go out and we'll do cybersecurity assessments. The number one thing outside of configuration and vulnerability management that we see is organizations are understaffed for IT and for cybersecurity. And then many instances, one or two people are doing IT and they're dual-hatted as cyber as well. And so the challenges that we see in for many industries in those areas focus on not having enough personnel. So during, right in the middle of the pandemic, I was requested to go and work for the Pikes Workforce Center, part of one of the boards I got introduced to. I learned so much more about workforce in our community, in our state, and nationally. Colorado is one of 3 states in the United States that actually does workforce at a local level. They're called demonstration states. All the other states do workforce manage it at the state level. So here locally, you get to work in your own community solving workforce issues. And so I would bring my clients and introduce them to the Workforce Center to try and solve some of those problems, not just for IT, but for other areas as well. But from that perspective, it's looking at what local resources are available and being able to communicate them out.
Thank you so much, Sean. Justin, I'd like to pick your brain, picking up from Sean's point, in terms of collaborations and partnerships between the public and private sector. What does that look like at your level of working in the government, and how can we leverage that in ways that we can complement each other to kind of address the cybersecurity workforce gap that we're seeing?
Sure. As Sean mentioned, a lot of our folks wear multiple hats, and we have an IT department at the library. We don't have a cybersecurity department, so we wear multiple hats, and they're not fully trained for what they have to deal with, but they do their best. But I think that opens up opportunities for folks to start their career at maybe a library or a school district, like for a launching pad for their career. They can serve the community, they can get experience with real live data. I would definitely welcome an internship at the library for us, to have a steady flow of students to just keep coming through and learning on live data and then moving on and we just have some more come through. I mean, that would be amazing for us. And I can tell you right now, we cannot afford a cybersecurity department. So that would be very much in line with what we were looking for. So,
pretty interesting. Luria, I'm jumping over to you. The federal government, from a federal perspective, has been in the space, and there's a lot that can be learned from the federal government by local agencies, local governments, state governments. What can lower levels of government learn from approaches that the federal government has taken in terms of retaining cybersecurity talent and procuring that talent?
Okay, we'll go procuring first and then retainment after.
Certainly.
So anybody who's been on usajobs.com, they know that the hiring process for federal employees is very different than like corporate or even state and local hiring processes. This is mostly because federal jobs have a lot of laws and regulations that go into the requirements for the job. But on the other side of that, this also drives a lot of transparency in position requirements, schedules, and even pay. I mean, I can say, okay, this person is a GS-12, and you can go Google what they're going to make. And that attracts a lot of people because it means that you're going to get equitable treatment. It's sort of this assurance and as sort of a security that you're going to get the same thing as your peers, which is super attractive for a lot of people. I mean, it was attractive to me. I work in federal service. So, and then retainment, this is something I've heard like day in, day out at my job from my coworkers and then from my leadership. Basically, going to work every day as a federal employee feels really purposeful. You have a mission. A lot of the agencies or units that you're with have some sort of objective. And so as part of Space Command, it feels really good for me to wake up in the morning and go to work and know that I'm contributing to the safety and security of the US. And so I feel like that's a really big draw in for a lot of federal employees. I hope that answered your question.
Oh, certainly, certainly. And I think it segues perfectly into what I want to ask Ben about. Ben, you're a CISO, and you have to kind of ensure that the pathway for some of these things exist. Some of the strategies that Luria would have spoken about, it's your job to ensure that that kind of synergy exists. From your perspective, who are the key stakeholders in the Colorado space? Who are the key stakeholders that are necessary to make that kind of collaboration occur to procure the kind of results that we want to see?
Colorado does have a deeply connected set of folks who coordinate the programs that bring people to the workforce, that share opportunities, educational opportunities and workforce opportunities with people who are out there. And I have helped and worked together with a range of individuals who are seeking to enter the cybersecurity workforce or seeking to be a part of government in cybersecurity or seeking to change their careers or change their lives. So we have folks at the state. The state of Colorado's Office of Information Technology has the individual who, in my mind, is the absolute greatest cybersecurity leader in the nation, Jill Frazier, as the ultimate leader of cybersecurity for Colorado. And Jill is an extraordinary human being on many levels. And I'm sorry, Jill, if you see this, I'm not trying to blow smoke at you, but everyone who's worked with Jill thereafter seeks to be more like her. And having that kind of presence in Colorado at the top sets the tone for the collaborative work that happens in every other state agency, in every other government that is cyber engaged, which is not most governments in Colorado, but it is the ones with bigger budgets, special districts, federal partners, businesses, especially the tech businesses, which are in that Colorado eco-security type ecosystem that we have in Denver and all over the state, and universities. But since you said stakeholders, and since I am a PMP, I'm going to tell you that our residents expect more from us in this space than what we are doing. Government is on the back foot. It is not meeting the expectations of the residents. It's not meeting their expectations with respect to privacy. It's not meeting their expectations with respect to the adoption of advanced technologies. It's not meeting their expectations with respect to transforming the services government presents to them by applying technology and by applying it in a way that bakes cybersecurity into those services. And our greatest stakeholder in government are our residents, those people who need our services to continue their lives. So I'll probably talk more about this as we go through this panel conversation, but the most critical stakeholder here is not any individual person who's out looking for a job. It is not a CEO who's really hoping to transform their business. It is our people, this community, They are the foundation of all of our success.
Thank you so much for that thoughtful response. And it brings me back to you, Penny. Earlier, we talked a little bit about the challenges that are faced by municipal governments or smaller governments. And we spoke a little bit about public-private partnerships. But as Ben rightfully mentioned as well, the partners and stakeholders in this entire issue of cybersecurity workforce resilience is much more complex. There are many different types of partners. There are regional partnerships, there are local partnerships. And what we have found is that municipal governments often partner with each other in regions and so forth. Tell us a little bit about your experience with that kind of partnership. And I'm asking because some persons tend to say that sometimes those partnerships don't run deep enough to solve some of the issues that are being experienced, and it goes back to Ben's issue of the expectations of what we want or the people want. So from your perspective, it would be interesting to understand, beyond just public-private partnerships, what kind of partnerships at that level really work.
There's a couple that I would point to in particular. The first that's just top of mind is our Office of Economic Development with the Mayor's Office. Citywide partners with various veteran organizations. And so, you know, when we're posting, when we do have a job open, we're posting the job rec. We would tap into some of those veteran sources, which I think which has been a huge asset for us in our building our team. Another one I would point to is internships. That's big. It's a great way to get you know, fresh ideas, fresh perspectives, and primarily we've partnered with Colorado Tech for our internship program. But I would also point to, as you mentioned, other municipal city organizations. So we've worked closely with the City of Aurora, the City of Lakewood, Douglas County, other municipalities in particular around various engagements. So where we might have one of our top priorities is to simplify our application portfolio. And so looking to understand better what do other cities do to provide those city services for our departments and also ultimately the residents of our city. How can we do that in a more efficient way that's safer, more secure, and really provides the services that they need?
Thank you so much. Ben, the third, and I'm coming back to you, and I know I'm coming back to you pretty quickly, and that's because I want to continue on this line of conversation that we're having, and that is because the cyber threats are evolving rapidly, requiring this continuous skill development. How can state agencies create career pathways that not only attract new talent, but also upskill the current employees so that we can get to addressing that key problem that you identified, and that is around ensuring that we're serving the interests of the people that elected us?
It's a great question. I really appreciate this. Okay. So the people in our community know who to see when they have a toothache. They go to the dentist. There is no one in our community to see if you have a cybersecurity problem. There is no one. There are companies which will sell you software, but there are no people who will help you with your cybersecurity problem. The closest we have now in our communities are people like our district attorneys, victim services groups, and people like our state attorney general's victim services and Stop Fraud Colorado programs, which are there to help victims of fraud get some kind of recovery. But they're not there, and they're not positioned, and they're not investing in helping them prevent the damage in the first place. Which is why what I came here today to say is that cybersecurity isn't a job skill, it is citizenship. Cybersecurity is a skill that all Americans must have so that we as a nation are resistant to fraud, so that we can act in a way that addresses the risks within our lives by developing a risk tolerance for ourselves, a window of acceptance, by changing our behaviors collectively and individually to protect our families, to protect our employers, and if we're in government, to protect our residents. And for that purpose, I strongly believe that cybersecurity has become a business process problem within government. It's not a buy a technology problem. It's not a hire the right person problem. It's a business process problem. If it is, then we need business transformations that involve baking security into the business. And when we transform the services we provide and we bake cybersecurity in, then we are turning the line level employees who deliver those services into cybersecurity professionals. And that is one of the greatest force magnifiers that we can have within all of our organizations. If I start a cybersecurity program for your local city or county or your library, or if I start a business in your town, and I am the best at cybersecurity, and I hire another person and they are the best at cybersecurity, I will build a thing that's really great, and it'll protect all of the servers. But you don't use servers, right? You show up at the front desk. That's where the cybersecurity needs to happen, is at the front desk. And everybody, it used to be that all of the information security happened inside IT and inside the servers, and that's not true anymore. At Boulder County, I have open space employees who are the trail maintenance team. They're deploying credit card readers at the parking areas for our open space. All of my employees need cybersecurity capabilities, and I'm not talking about a 20-minute training every quarter where I regurgitate phishing information at you. That's not real. I'm talking about what's your business? Do we know how it works? Where are the cybersecurity touch points? Where are the other kinds of quality touch points? This is Colorado. We care about more than this. What about the accessibility of these services? They all come together, and they all have to be driven by the individuals who operate those businesses. So that is my pitch, is that cybersecurity workforce development is about getting cybersecurity skills into all of the workforce. All of the people who work here in Colorado are citizens, so that they can protect themselves, their children, and us at work without a central cybersecurity program in your small, underfunded organization having to try to control everyone.
Yep,
Sorry for the long answer.
No. Thank you for the passion, because you're spot on. And that's one of the approaches we've taken at the city, is it's not just IT's job, it's really all city employees. And when we've taken that kind of passion to the rest of the departments, what we've seen there is then the departments tell us, oh my goodness, I told my husband about that. Or, so we've really tried to make it real as individuals. How does this impact you? Because it's true, it's not just on your city assets. It could be on your personal assets as well, where you're getting some of these attacks. And so really upskilling all of our employees and our residents more broadly brings that kind of passion. So thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much. You said something very interesting just now, Ben, that cybersecurity is citizenship. And I'd like to put that on a shirt. Rodney, I think we should have some of those shirts at the NICE conference. And it is very true. I mean, one of the things we talk about in our trainings, Brian will tell you, that we see cybersecurity more as a people issue than it's a technology issue, that everyone should be involved in the whole process of cybersecurity. And so I'd like to ask you, Luria, we know that the military has a long-standing tradition in talent development and ensuring those talent development pipelines. The DoD has many opportunities, scholarship opportunities, and so forth. One of the challenges we know exists in ensuring that cybersecurity is truly citizenship is that the average citizen, the problem of the average citizen accessing training or upskilling and reskilling and so forth, and it's the same for the workforce. What strategies can we employ in that regard?
Okay, so in regard to like DoD workforce transition programs, okay, and other like scholarship opportunities, things like that. I mean, I'm fortunate enough to be a veteran that has access to those programs, and I've also used local workforce programs when I was transitioning from the military into sort of private sector and now federal work. And I will say about those DoD workforce programs, it is really nice to have a program that is tailored to your specific circumstances available to you. And that's not necessarily an opportunity that local and state programs get, because they have a lot of different people from different walks of life that they're trying to cater to. However, developing programs that have a specific function tend to be more successful in general, at least in my experience. So maybe tailoring a little more of their general help into specific sectors, especially for cyber, because we are so different from a lot of other sectors as far as requirements, as far as education, and we're so varied in skill abilities and things like that, that I feel there's so much confusion on, okay, I want to be a software engineer. How do I do that? How do I get to that place? And a lot of times we have a lot of mid-career people who pivot into tech. And they're like, oh, that's a smart decision because Colorado's going to see a 2.53% increase in, IT jobs in the next 10 years. So that's going to be an amazing field that people are moving into. So I feel like if you tailored specific programs for people moving into cybersecurity at local and state levels, that would definitely help bolster the community.
Thank you so much, Luria. Justin, I had another question for you, but I'm going to put you on the spot, pick your brain a bit. From your perspective working in government, how effective are some of these things that Luria just mentioned in terms of on-the-job kind of upskilling and reskilling? What has been your experience with those approaches?
Well, working for a library, we do have a very nice program of pushing education and books, learning library. So we have we'll push you through your certification programs. We'll push you through schooling. We actually will pay for a portion of your schooling if you want to go try to get your master's or things like that. So I think it's important to provide those programs in any organization, is to push further education on these and try to push folks to even out of their position and maybe even out of your organization. You always want your folks to learn the most from you, and if they have to move on, at least be in the best state they can be to go to another organization and apply those skills. Then you've got more talent coming in, you can teach them and keep that flow going, because I think that's extremely important. And I push my employees, I have my CC, so I got it with Dr. Murray. I'm going back and I'm taking my A+ right now, and I'm going to take my Network Plus, and I'm going to take my Security Plus, and I'm trying to set an example for my staff that, even though I've got this higher certification, I can go back and learn and start from the beginning and learn this stuff and keep moving up, and hopefully that helps motivate them to want to extend their education as well.
Well done, impressive. Sean, you're the guy with the money on the panel. You're always, let me say, accused of, in the private sector that is, of poaching cyber talent. But I have come to learn that partnerships between the private sector and the public sector can work. And there has been many approaches in how we structure that kind of partnership. It doesn't always have to be I leave the public sector to go work with the private sector, but some kind of partnership. Do you think that kind of model would work or could work in Colorado, or has worked from your own experience? And what kind of thoughts could we put to that? You have the listening ear of two senior cybersecurity professionals from the public service here on the panel.
So I can tell you that half the people up on here on this panel are my clients. So advisory services in some way. Either that or I participate on their boards to provide my perspective and trying to help solve those problems. But we've got other organizations, my compadre all the way in the back, Bob Gemignani with the Pikes Peak Workforce Center. Pikes Peak Business and Education Alliance is a specific example of how in your community this can work. And I'm going to take a moment. Bob, you need to talk to Justin because he wants to be part of your internship program for solving some of the problems he's discussing up here. So I made a network connection between two entities, one that's going to help solve that problem. When we look at private sector, we don't want to snipe all the talent from the government side. We want to try and help with the big discussion we've had here. How do we get those students into the pipeline, helping municipalities, or those who are at the end of their career cycle that again, it was mentioned I've already got a retirement. I'm at retirement age. My wife doesn't want me at home because she's going to kick me out of the house if I don't find a hobby. Now I'm going to work part-time at a municipality. I've got the experience. I'm not here because I'm looking to make money, but because I want to make a difference. And so entry level to end of career level, those are the types of strategies that we discuss when we have these meetings.
Wonderful, wonderful. Penny, we just spoke about the money piece of things, and we also know that cybersecurity workforce development does not always have to require funds, right? Local governments have tried many strategies, right? And we have many listening ears here. What non-monetary intensive approaches have you tried, if you have, you find work in terms of helping to build the resilience of? Yeah.
It's been mentioned up here, a lot of it. How about this one? Okay, that's better. It has already been mentioned up here, but a lot of it is about upskilling and training our team so that they have the skills they need to do, to either shift roles or to expand their career. We do see folks, we do hire, to your point, we do hire both interns coming in at entry-level positions as well as some folks who are near to the retirement age. And so just helping to fill that gap so that when and if folks can want to upskill or take on additional responsibilities or move, that they have the training they need to do that to be successful. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Going over to you, Laura. We know that federal agencies, including U.S. Space Command, rely on highly specialized cybersecurity talent. My question to you is, how can Colorado's cybersecurity ecosystem, and I hear Gretchen continuously and Rodney say it's an ecosystem of many different partners and players. How can the Colorado cybersecurity ecosystem build training programs that align with future workforce areas, taking into account issues like AI, cyber defense, space and cybersecurity? One of the things we find is that cybersecurity is being taught at many different levels. There are many types of training programs, but the market is just not there to absorb them, sometimes because we are not training to the needs of the market. And so how can Colorado, the stakeholders in the Colorado ecosystem, borrow from some of the strategies that I'm sure you're well aware of at the federal level?
Okay. With the highly specialized, okay, there we go. Hey. With the, yeah, that's hot. With the highly specialized nature of like different systems within U.S. Space Command, Cyber Command, any sort of government entity that serves in the defense sector, you don't really know what you're walking into until you're in the job. And that means you're going to have to have a workforce that covers all of the basics, the foundations. And I would say the best thing you can do when you're training your members or trainees, I guess, for these kinds of positions or going into the workforce and being viable is just like the theme of this little event is like you have to make sure that they're resilient, they're adaptable, they're reliable, and they know how to use those skills in a way that makes them a viable candidate. Of course, you have to meet very specific laws and regulations for federal, civilian service and things like that. And that can all be found on like cyber.mil and all that kind of stuff. But you can definitely vector your people to be a strong candidate if you focus on the foundations and the requirements that are widely available for federal employees.
I'd like to add.
Sure, please.
So I had an opportunity to serve on the Secretary of Defense, the Office of the CIO's Cyber Workforce Program for DoD for a few years. And they have a very mature program. It's evolved from the DoD, what we call 8140 standard, and the old 8570 standard. The 8570 has been rescinded with a new publication of 8140 version 3. It identifies technical expertise requirements, so IT, networking, in the certifications and the education requirements, and then they put them on a matrix. They also have the management, so IAM for the management aspect. If you are oversight or management over IT or over cybersecurity programs, you're required to have a specific acumen, experience, and aligned certification. And then specifically architect and engineering is such a uniqueness that they have identified structured certifications and curriculum for those acumens. And then we have this thing called defensive cyber operations, or the SOC, the Security Operations Center. Well, now you've got analysts, incident responders, and now you have identified workforce certifications that align to the skill sets for those positions with across the DoD. It doesn't matter if you're active duty, a government civilian, or you're in a contractor role. Across the entire DoD, it's a very mature process, and they've identified it very well.
Thank you so much. Ben, great ideas, wonderful approaches. How do we scale that to make sure that it's sustainable? Rodney will tell you that cybersecurity workforce development is about resilient, and ensuring that workforces remain resilient, scalability is important. How do we move some of these strategies that we know work at different levels of government and scale them so that we have the kind of impact? Getting back to the point that you raised earlier, protecting the citizens that are looking to us for that protection.
So scalability is an interesting topic. What I think I heard is that we have a lot of different kinds of people working at every different level. If we want those people to be engaged, we can't make them do everything. Like you probably don't have someone in IT who has to have like a real-time computing background necessarily. Maybe the engineers need that background, but maybe the server admins don't need that background. So to me, that makes me think that we need to figure out what the basics are. What basics can we identify to give everyone access to so that we're on this level playing field? We have the same language we speak. Now, right now, I think those basics are defined often by the acceptable use and cybersecurity policies of our organizations. That's not going to work very well because, again, now people can't move around. We don't have a common language between agencies, but at least we have one within our agency. If you scale up and you look at the common language used by our communities, unfortunately, you now are looking at the things like the frameworks that have been published about cybersecurity. Now, I cannot go to my family services division and educate them on the NIST 853 framework. That is not where this will not happen, right? They do not have the time to learn that, and it doesn't constitute the basics. Much of what is in there is not relevant to people who are working in technology-enabled fields, but who are not specifically cybersecurity engineers or analysts or security leaders, or even IT professionals who are who are working on hardcore centralized technology for the organization. And in the absence of a set of what the basics are, and I would argue that CISA was getting there before Jen Easterly, during Jen Easterly's time at CISA, I would argue that they were getting to what are the basics that Americans need to know about for cybersecurity, what are the basics that people here who care about each other and their families and their work and the prosperity of our environment that we will need to know together. We're starting to have that conversation, and I think we'll get back to that conversation eventually, but we're not having it right now. So when you ask what would allow us to scale up, my response to that is a common body of knowledge that is generally accessible, that we have ingrained in our educational system, and that we have ingrained through adult education. Again, not making you take the stupid test because you failed the phishing test this month, the quiz. Something that treats you like a real person, maybe that teaches people through storytelling, that teaches people through repetition. The skills that we use to build each other up in every other area of society where we don't acronym each other to death. That is what I think is necessary to scale up.
You know, Barbara makes me take that test every semester.
You should be good at it by now.
I'd like to pick your brain on something, Sean. Coming of the point that Ben just raised, we're at a university institution. The university is responsible for the procurement and the production of talent and knowledge. One of the challenges that we find from your perspective, industry, is that sometimes the skills that we are preparing or the skills that we're building in those who come to the university seeking cybersecurity knowledge is sometimes incompatible with what the industry is looking for. Sometimes not for any shortcoming of the university. As a professor myself, I can tell you that, but because cybersecurity, the issues change and the reality is dynamic. How can universities as centers of adult learning adopt and partner with the industry leaders to ensure that the knowledge that we're producing and the individuals and the talent that we're producing remain reliable over time?
Well, I would add the word relevant. One of the things I didn't share, I've been a professor at various universities around the United States for the last 15 years or so. So I love this question because I'm not just an academic, I'm a practitioner. And I can tell you when I went through my doctoral program, the university that I went through, I was very critical of the curriculum that they were using. It was stuff that is published in the 70s and 80s and in some 90s. While some of it may be relevant, it is not the core curriculum that I need to build a student who is ready to enter into the workforce, ready to go, right? And so in colleges and accredited colleges and universities and technical schools have additional accreditation requirements to include workforce. And they have a pact, so they get industry professionals that advise them on what they need to be doing as well. And I think those are critical components of a good university or collegiate or technical school program. But I can tell you, if you've always spent all of your career as an academic, you are missing an aspect that makes you relevant to the student who is going to go through a 4 year program. And so you need to be able to collaborate with practitioners to be able to understand what the threat terrain really looks like. Cybersecurity industry, the analogy I use is that of the medical industry. So you go to school for 8 years, you get a license to practice medicine. Now what do you want to do? You want to be a OBGYN, you want to be oncologist, a brain surgeon. Cybersecurity has many, many, many disciplines. Where are you a unicorn? And as an academic and as the responsibility from a university perspective, how do I steer and recognize what that student's acumen is, what their desires are? And sometimes you jump around in many different positions, which makes you a more rounded person before you find your niche.
I absolutely love that point. I teach cybersecurity leadership strategy and management. And one of the first things I say to my students on the first day of class is what I said 2 sentences ago, that cybersecurity is more about people than it is about technology. And you hit the nail on the head to say that cybersecurity is a discipline. And within that discipline, there are many different specializations. When we need to write a cybersecurity policy, we don't always expect the guy who codes to be able to write a policy. Right? It's like engineering. The engineer can put down a nice piece of asphalt anywhere, and it's perfect. But it's the policy guy who determines where that road needs to go and what communities will be impacted by that, right? And so I want to come to you on this point, Justin, that there are many soft skills in cybersecurity that one must learn. And in this Colorado ecosystem, what do you think, and we have the ears of many listeners, what do you think are those cybersecurity soft skills? Moving away from the technical competencies, but what are those cybersecurity soft skills do you think are important to the Colorado ecosystem, that if every entity that is represented here, and I'd like your views on that too as well, Penny, if every entity here would adopt some of those soft skills and impart them, it would help to bolster the cybersecurity workforce in this Colorado ecosystem?
Well, as I mentioned before, I don't have a cybersecurity department, so I don't know. No. No, I would say the soft skills would be collaborations, getting out into the community, getting into groups like this, coming here at 4 o'clock today, coming to Cybersecurity First Friday, meeting people, networking, talking with them. That's the way to find everything that's going on in your community. You can find out what ISSA is doing for the whole month. Right now, I think this month they're doing 3 different classes where they're for free, and they're studying Security Plus, and they're studying work groups. So those type of skills to get out there and just find out what's out there. Join your local groups. I know when Charlie he's gone now, but my journey to this chair started with a call from him. And so the first thing I did is I started looking up, MS Isaac and CIS, and I joined the Friendership with Ben, and he was in there, and he's moved on to the partnership call. I'm on that as well, and MS Isaac calls every month. And then I started coming here and learning about all the things that are in our local community that you can be a part of. And I think that's really important, is to get your students to these events and get them learning from folks that have more experience. And also there's opportunities for hiring. And there's all kinds of things you can pull from this building right here at 4 o'clock. So.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. It's that spirit of collaboration. It's the spirit of continual learning. Where can we encourage people to always be questioning, always be trying to get better and being hungry? Colorado Springs is the Olympic city, right? And so the spirit of the Olympics is always about not just competition, but how do we as individuals get better at whatever the sport is. So if our sport is cybersecurity, how can we push that and encourage that sort of that spirit and that hunger?
Sure, go ahead.
Shameless plug. There are tons of veteran-centric communities in the area, and if you are a veteran, which there's a lot of us in this community, absolutely, please join them, be an active member. They are so beneficial in the personal and professional aspects of your life.
Splendid. I'm going to give the panelists one last word, starting with you.
So for those that weren't here at the end of our last session, cybersecurity has been around for over 1,000 years. And I get people looking at me going, what is he talking about, right? So we used to call it information security. The reason why we call it cyber now is because 80% of the things that we do at work and in our own personal lives revolve around some type of technology. And if you look at your home network, how many devices do you have connected to your network? Right, so we've got 27, and I got network segmentation. It's your mobile devices, it's your laptops, it's your Fitbit, it's your television, the routers, and everything else. So cybersecurity, information security should happen at the kindergarten level. The kids have the technology before they even get to school. Cybersecurity should be part of curriculum, embedded as core curriculum in all aspects of our lives, from the time that we start school, if we go to university, or any other aspect of what we do. Should be embedded in our processes within our businesses, whether that's municipal, federal, whether it's a for-profit or a non-profit. There's other adversaries that are ahead of us in the game right now. China is actually surpassed us about 2 years ago. They have a national cybersecurity strategy that they've executed, and they've exceeded our capabilities. That should be an awakening. The country of Israel adopted a standard to look for those skill sets they go back all the way to the middle school level, looking for the skill sets necessary to develop those people that are going to help them in the intelligence and defense of their nation. So what are we doing to help cultivate that? This is a great opportunity, Rodney, having this precursor event to the event that's coming in June. Appreciate you having us come out here. This starts the conversation.
Ben?
So we talk about cybersecurity, and we all remember to say that it's people, process, and then technology. And then we just run right back to our desks and we do technology and then process and then people. So my pitch to you is, we talk about cybersecurity skills and who are the right people and how do we find them and what do we look for. And the truth is that the right skills for cybersecurity are all around us. If you can survive in a foreign city, if you speak a couple languages, if you understand how Northern Europeans built their city-states to be defensible, if you know how to defend a budget proposal, you have cybersecurity skills. These are the skills that our programs need to advance within government. And the people with those skills will not be the people who typically get access to all of our resources. So by recognizing the broad range of capabilities, which can be cybersecurity skills, if we start to see this beautiful set of alternative pathways to get into cybersecurity as valuable, you have access to a lot more people. You can bring all kinds of different people into cyber and use their wisdom. There are people in this world who know how to do incredible things that cybersecurity needs to know how to do. For example, if we need to understand epidemiology, it is wrong to reinvent epidemiology. That's a real thing that people already figured out how to do. We can go talk to epidemiologists. If you are worried about crisis leadership, every single district in this nation has an emergency manager. That person really knows. They've been saving that organization from floods and fires since before you were born. You can go learn how to do incident management. Do not invent these things from scratch. Look at the people around you, all of them, not just the ones that look like us, not just the ones that have the right letters after their name, not just the ones who got access to high-cost tools, resources, and preparation. And find your cybersecurity skills and find your cybersecurity workforce from those people, the people with unique capabilities that are all around us.
Luria.
Lately, I have had the opportunity of collaborating and being in spaces with a lot of younger members who are sort of like internet and technology natives. And the thing that I've noticed the most is it's not intuitive. And there's a lot of things that they've had to learn on the job that were taught to me in school with the advent of technology and technology affecting educational spaces. And I find that education has been neglected for the younger generation. The younger generation doesn't necessarily know that they need to practice information security because social media has been such a big part of their life and they're sharing every single aspect of their life constantly. And they don't know that there is a line, and they don't know how to moderate that. And I feel like that's a skill that a lot of us older people have developed. And I know that a lot of people in this space have contact and sway over the education of those younger people. And so I please urge you to reconsider what you consider intuitive or something that they just should know or common sense, because it may be something that was not included in their education, and it may seem like common sense for us, but it is not common sense for them.
Perfectly said, Justin.
So I'm going to go the route of we need to be keeping our thumb on the pulse of AI and quantum technology. You need to carve time out in your workday to learn about these tools because they're evolving so quickly, and if we don't keep up with them, they're going to run us over. We need to be encouraging not only our workers and ourselves to take time to learn about these tools and what they're capable of, but you need to be teaching your families, you need to teach your parents, your kids about deep fake technology and the scary things that are out there that you can be susceptible to. We've got to get the knowledge out to everyone. It's not just who you work with, but the whole community. And we need more programs to educate folks on all these tools and their capabilities for good and bad. There's a lot of good things that AI can do, but there's a lot of terrible things too, as well. So I think if we just carve out the time, set aside a Friday, maybe half a day, to just play with AI, you know what I mean? You got to, because if you don't keep up with it with your organization, you will lose eventually.
Thank you. Penny?
No worries. Well, thank you, and I agree with what everybody said. I just want to leave a little more optimistic. I'm excited. I'm excited about the pipeline of talent that is being generated. I'm excited about some of the opportunities, and we do have some big challenges to face, but I'm optimistic that we'll figure it out. It's not to say we're not going to stumble along the way, but I think at the end of the day, we by just being here and being a part of this conversation, are breeding in some of that resiliency. So thank you.
Thanks, Penny. You don't get to see Colorado's finest cybersecurity talent on show every day. And so I'm going to give the audience the opportunity to ask questions, 2 questions to our panelists. We have 1 question here, so we'll go.
If I had to summarize the overarching theme that I've heard from everybody, whether it's the lowest level of education or the highest level of leadership and security, you're all talking about behavioral change. And I know from my whole career, if you're going to have behavioral change, you've got to change the incentives. I have not heard you talk about what are the incentives to do all this behavioral change at all these levels that we're talking about.
I'll talk about the incentives. So we talked about losing people once they learn cyber skills, and that can happen within IT. It does not happen within our businesses. And the reason for that is that the people in our business units are there because they believe in our mission and they value the work that they do. For example, at Boulder County, we have a human services department, and I was given the unique opportunity to take a compliance burden away from those individuals, and they told me 2 years later that I had freed up enough staff time for them to accomplish 30 additional adoptions. I have a computer science degree from Montana State University. There's no future where I was going to be able to create that kind of value for my community with computer nerd stuff. This is one of the greatest ways that you can contribute to our society right now. If you work with government where every single day they provide services that make a big difference for real people, and you connect emotionally to either the damage of the incidents that are happening all over our world and how you can prevent those, or the inspiring stories that come out of people actually caring about each other and solving problems within government and making government awesome again, you will not go get a goofy sock job for twice as much money and stare at a screen all day. You will want to be embedded in your businesses, learning everything your organization does, transforming and growing the next generation of services provided to your community. That value cannot be replaced by money or time. And on top of that, local government, doesn't pay as poorly as people think, and it is excellent work-life balance. So I'm a huge fan of being able to contribute in that way, and I will always guide people towards government cybersecurity for that reason.
We have 1 question at the back.
Yeah, Bob Gimignani, Pikes Peak Business and Education Alliance. Imagine you have a magic wand. What's one thing you would do to fill the talent pipeline for cybersecurity so that our communities had the talent they needed to sustain and thrive? What's one thing you would do today?
I'll answer by saying start at the grade school level. Start them on coding, start them on learning, get them, they're growing up with the technology already. It's in their hands. You know, my daughter can probably run her iPad better than my iPad better than I can. While they're on those tools, give them, incentive to, hey, go in there and code for an hour, then you can play Roblox for an hour. Those type of things. Start them so early because the pipeline has to start early. They've got to start getting interested in this and feeling some sort of guidance from us. That's what we need right now, is to push our youth towards learning through this early.
I think
I'd like to add to that, and I mentioned it in the last session, and that is we got to break the stigma of they're just kids. So if they're coming out of high school, junior high school, and we need these internships, we need these mentorships and apprenticeships, we got to break the stigma for businesses and hiring officials to say, oh, well, you're just a high schooler. You got to start somewhere. You got to break that stigma, I think, is the big one, Bob.
Also, when you look at children and how they're going to learn IT, the initiative is already there. I have a friend whose son is 11 years old, and he's learning how to code in Java so he can do his Minecraft mods. So the initiative to learn the skills that are underlie the structure that they use every day is already there, and we just have to tap into how they're going to access that motivation.
Well said. And I hope, ladies and gentlemen, that you have realized by now that I didn't lie in my opening, that we were fortunate to have been joined by such a thoughtful panel of individuals who have shared some very insightful gems, chief of which is that cybersecurity is citizenship. Thank you all, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks tonight.
a story. When my daughter was 5 years old, we were at the back of a Target. You're familiar with Target, the store. In the back of the Target, you have all the television sets, right, along the wall. And my 5-year-old starts swiping the TVs. And every time she'd swipe a TV and it didn't move, she'd say, "Dad, this TV's broken." She'd move to the next one. She'd swipe the TV again. She'd say, "Dad, this one's broken too." Finally, she convinced me. She said, "Dad, all the TVs are broken, and we have to go tell the sales associate that all of this is broken. They shouldn't have these on display because it's just going to deter people from buying it." And I said, "No, honey, it's not that they're broken. These aren't tablets. These are TVs. They're static. They don't move like that." And she started arguing with me. So I'm arguing in the back of a Target with a 5-year-old over tech. But I put my head down. I walked over to the sales associate. I said, "How dare you have all those TVs in the back? They're broken. None of them worked." And then I tried to get out of the store as quickly as possible. But I had that aha moment that these kids, as early as 5, if not younger, are essentially born with tech in the hands. And about 3 weeks later, my wife and I founded Teaching Digital Natives, which was a nonprofit. This is back in 2017. And the spirit of that, I mean, thank you, but the spirit of that was, again, here's my 5-year-old, and no one is really teaching her. And I thought that I had some degree of sophistication in the tech space, but still realizing that I was doing a really poor job at teaching her how to respect technology. As a digital immigrant, I immigrated to technology. I came to technology with a very different suspicion, right? A very different responsibility to say, "Ooh, what is this?" And I was nervous about sort of embracing tech, as many are, but the youth sort of being born into technology today, which is why I was really excited to hear about the spirit of trying to move that education as low down the vertical as possible. Lots of really amazing thoughtfulness in the panel today. So please join me in another round of applause for our speakers. DJ, of course, did an exceptional job moderating, so DJ, we appreciate that. I think the few people up front, the one person I want to thank at the back is Barbara. Barbara has been part of Team FIU. She has been the cornerstone of putting these things together for some time now. So please join me in a round of applause for Barbara. She would prefer not to be recognized, but the work that she's done is incredible and instrumental. And so on that note, I'd like to invite everybody back to a reception that we have just adjacent here, an opportunity to network. And then I have a surprise. The surprise is most people don't know DJ is a trained vocalist. In fact, he's a baritone. And one of the things that he committed to doing was song in the back. So he's going to perform at some point during the reception this evening. And so please, thank you everyone. Join me for the reception.